Hi and welcome to this week's video where I'm going to be showing you how I make these. So these are plaques, name plaques for dogs. I can also make them for cats or any pet. So these have a number of applications really. You can use them as name badges for toy boxes or for treat boxes. I can make a desk mount for you, so you can put it on your desk at work. You can put them on walls, so you can use command strips or screws, and we can put hooks in these for holding your dog leads. So there's a number of different applications for these, and I'm going to show you how I make them. So we'll take you right through from the initial design on Vectric's Aspire software, how I draw out the names and make sure that they're going to cut properly before the wood's put on the table. So as part of the design process, we just make sure that things are going to work whenever we go to cut. The reason I love Aspire is because you're able to mount 3D objects on top of other 3D objects. So this is a curved profile with a bone which sits on top, and then the paw prints are set into the curved surface. So they look really good when they're finished. This is just Danish oil. They can be painted, or you can just pretty them up whatever way you want to. But this is what we start with. So if you look back through some of our old videos, you'll see whenever the weather was nicer, back in the summer, I made fretwork for the summer house windows, and these are the offcuts. So I didn't want to waste this wood, so I held on to it thinking that I could make something maybe towards Christmas time with them. So I'm cutting 2 of these out of each piece. So we'll show you how we drew this shape out and made sure that these would fit. So let's get started. Let's start with the Aspire steps. So I've already gone ahead and drawn out the shape of the piece of wood. So that was 84mm high by 480 wide, and I've been able to fit 2 name plaques in, so just to minimize the waste. And I've created a 3D shape already, so if I just switch off the toolpath, you'll be able to see it. So there's kind of a raised dome profile on the panel itself, and a flat section around the edge just to give it a nice border. The bone and the paws you'll have seen previously, and then 2 holes for mounting, and now's a good time to put them in so that you get them in exactly the right place without having to measure it out once the piece is finished. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do another Bailey on the left hand side here to match this one, and show you why it doesn't come out cleanly first time round, depending on the tool that you're using and the size of the text. So we'll just hop back into our drawing tab here and go back into 2D view, and then I'll bring up the text tool and put in the word Bailey and close that down. So it comes over here. I'm going to move it over onto the new plaque, and it doesn't fit, so I can rotate that round and it should fit in. So that makes it fit. So I'm going to create a 3D model of this word, just to drop it down into the top of the domed section on the plaque. And I do that with the modeling tool, and I'm just going to do a flat profile. I'm not really all that fond of using V-carve. A lot of people use V-carve for text. I'm not really that fond of the look of V-carve, so I just want to do a flat text here. So this has already been preset from previously, so it's minus 1.4mm. It seems to look okay on the finished piece, so I'm just going to keep going with that. So I apply that, and you can see a 3D model being created there in yellow. So close this down, go into my 3D view, looks perfect. So that looks to me to be correct. However, this doesn't take account of what tool you're using. This is just a theoretical view of what you would get if you were using the correct tooling on the machine to achieve this finish. So I go over into the cam section of Aspire and bring up a toolpath that I have previously done, and I pick the tool. So really what I want to do here is keep the tool changes down, especially if I need to change a collet. So if I went to a 16th inch bit here, I would have to change from a 1/4 inch to a 1/8 inch collet. It all takes time and you have to reset Z height. So I just try to keep everything as simple as possible because I'm doing multiple runs of this. So a 1/8 inch ball nose is a pretty good compromise. With the detail I have here, it should find no problem doing this. If I was to pick a 1/8 ball nose and then a 1/16, you never really get the Z heights correct, so you end up with a border around the edge which is deeper or shallower than the main text, so it looks a bit messy. So I just like to keep things clean. Use one tool if I can, even sometimes use a 1/8 ball nose for cutouts, which I know you shouldn't do, but it saves tool change, it saves time. So if I calculate this tool path, and then I can close that down and go in and preview what I've just calculated. Then you can see on the right is the one that was finished and the one that's been amended to look right. And on the left is the result of using the 1/8 inch bit. So you can see that it looks a bit messy. There's areas that the tool can't get into because the letter isn't wide enough. So that's why it's important to do these previews before you produce something, because if I produced that off the machine, I would have to either work it by hand or start again. So I'll show you the steps now that I use to clean this up to make it look like the one on the right hand side. So we come out of our preview screen back into our drawing tab, into 2D. Now a trick that I've used here is to draw out a circle which represents the tool I'm cutting with. So I want to draw a 1/8 inch diameter circle. So quick tip, 1/16 of an inch is 1.6 millimeters or thereabouts. So I'm going to do a 3.2 millimeter circle here, and that represents our 1/8 ball nose. So I can run this around the surface, round the letters, and see where it's going to fit and where it's not going to fit. And I can also use the preview to tell me where I need to focus. So we can see on the B that it's kind of round this curve in round here and here. Now the B should be easy. So the first tip is use the vector offset tool to bring the middle of the B in. Now how do I do that? Because whenever I pick that vector, it picks the whole word. Well, what I do is I go into node editing by hitting the N key, and then you go through this message. So I do want to convert this to curves. So now I can pick each letter individually and each element individually. So if I open up that drawing tab again, I can use the vector offset tool to bring that in just 0.5 of a millimeter. We'll see what it looks like. Delete the original vector, so it brings that all in and removes the original, and that should give us enough space to work with. So we can just have a quick look and see there might be one or two wee areas here, but we'll leave it at that for now, and then it'll give us an opportunity to use some of the other techniques. So where else do we need to look? The A. Well, let's do that the same way. And that should give us enough room. So this is slightly bigger than our 1/8 because it's 3.2 rather than 3.175 millimeters. So there's a little bit of leeway here. And we'll have a look and see where else. So that E, now the problem with the E is, and I'll just move that paw out of the way because it is interfering with our E. The problem with the E is if I make that too small, it's going to break out when I go to cut. So I don't really want to make that any smaller than it is now. So I don't really want to make the whole E bigger. So this is where I have to go in and edit the nodes individually. So I can just pick each node and move it out like this, just to make a bit more room for the tool to get in. Now it does look very messy, so now you can see why using a font such as this one, which is called Mad Scroll, actually works to your advantage a little bit, because it doesn't have to be perfect. So that's another method that I use there, just to move things around. Now the other thing you can do is you can select multiple nodes all at the same time and move them out. So I've used that before. Or you can cut the vectors. So I can just hit C and cut that one there. I think there's a couple of nodes in the same place there. And then I can move that whole line up and down separately and then rejoin them. So I use that one for longer letters like the L. If I need to shorten an L down to make it fit in, then I can just cut the section out in the middle and then rejoin it. So you really have got a lot of flexibility on the letters. You don't have to stick with the font the way it was designed. You can move these nodes around and make whatever you want out of them. You'll have seen the candy cane video, hopefully. That just started as a letter J, and then that was node editing like this, just to move the lines around and rejoin them. So I'm going to work away here and move whatever I need to around, and we'll speed it up. So we'll end up with hopefully something that looks like the one on the right, and then I'll show you the next step after that, just to make sure that it all works out. And we'll come back after all of that. Okay, we'll see how that looks now. So I've moved these vectors around. So the next thing I need to do is redraw the model. So I need to delete that one. And then select these vectors. Now the issue now is that because this is no longer text, as far as Aspire believes, it's just a series of nodes. I need to make sure that I select all the right ones, and I don't want to select this. So I need to get rid of that out of the way. And then I can select all of the vectors for the letters. Just make sure I've got them all. Then go back into the modeling and remake that model. Okay, great. And now I have to go back and recalculate the tool paths. So I need to go back in here, calculate those, and then go into the preview again. So I'll just I'll reset that and then preview again and see where we are now. So that's a lot better now. It's getting very close to what I'm aiming for. There's just this very slight, and I'm probably getting very picky now, but there's a very slight discrepancy there in that B. Just there. So I'm not going to do the offset. I think that would be unnecessary. I'm just going to move that corner down a little bit. And then I can remove that, just remove that one, I think. And rejoin that and see what that looks like. Okay, so it is a process of deleting the model, selecting the vectors, making sure we have them all, and then remaking the model. Recalculating the toolpath, and then running the preview again. Okay, so that's cleaned that bay up. So I think we're ready to run with this one. So we'll go back down to the workshop and start making. So this one's going to be Lola and Luna. What I've done is put an auxiliary spoil board on here. Number one, because the spoil board on the machine is a bit of a mess at the minute after making a few deeper than expected cuts. So this gives me a flat surface. I will be replacing the spoil board soon, but not quite yet. So I've made myself a template on this, which is the outline of these boards, because they're all the same. They were all cut on CNC with the same toolpath, so I know they're all the same. So that's going to speed me up. I will mount this over the lines that I've drawn. I know where my XY0 is. I just take a Z height, put the 1/8 round nose bit in, load the toolpath up, and away I go. So Lola and Luna, here we come. Lola and Luna cut. So we've got our touch plate in and our 1/4 inch straight cutter in. We'll just take another Z height reading and then we're ready to do our cutouts. So now we just take our knife and cut them out. Okay, so a sharp saw will just separate these and then we'll sand them down, probably down to 400 grit, and then put some Danish oil on them. Okay. So I've just gone 80, 120, 240, 400 on the grits there. So that just needs a little bit of a damp cloth over it now, just to get rid of the loose sawdust. And then ready for Danish oil, and that should be that one finished. And poor Luna had a little bit of a split, which was glued up. So that'll need a little bit more sanding, but it all adds character. So we'll do that one next. So Luna's ready now to join her friends Alfie, Max, Lola and Charlie for a quick dip in Danish oil. Then they can join Molly and all the rest of the dogs, which we'll show you later on.